Hey cats, it's Ed, midsole bud here. Sometimes we get a running shoe in and it just doesn't work for us. It could be the fit just being too roomy perhaps in the toe box. Maybe it's just too short in length. The midsole's just too squashy and compressive. The laces might not provide the lockdown that we require. It could be the insole might be too thin or too thick. We've all experienced these problems from time to time, but what can we do about it? Today I'm going to examine 3 shoes within my collection that I've managed to save. They perhaps didn't work out the box and I've had to do some tinkering and some modifications. Can I save our soles? Welcome to the channel, friends. If you haven't done so already, hit that subscribe button and tinker the bell for notifications. Really helps out if you give this video a thumbs up, like too, and share it with your running buddies. As does becoming a member of the channel or perhaps dropping us a super thanks down below. Over the last few years I've picked up a number of different shoes that perhaps haven't really worked that well out of the box for me. They've needed some modifications or some tinkering to actually get some more miles out of them. Today I'm going to go through 3 shoes and some modifications I've made to those to try and get a little bit more value out of my purchase. Can I save the soles of these poor old shoes? First up is the Nike VaporFly Next Gyakosou. I've probably pronounced it wrong, I'm sure someone will let me know in the comments. I picked this one up back in 2021 in fact, so I've had it in the collection for quite a while now. It was on some crazy deal, I think it was like £129 for a couple of days before Nike realised their error. It's taken a bit of a beating now, especially on the outsole there. Super cheap and absolutely worth it for that price though, was it really? I think these have got a little bit more in common with the VaporFly Next originals rather than the V2s. The midsole certainly feels closer to the V1 version of the VaporFly Next. The upper though was quite a bit thicker, quite bulky, and it came with these really thick rope-like laces that really didn't do the shoe any favours at all really. Same type of laces as you get on like a Jordan 11 or something. If you've got a pair of those, you'll know what I'm talking about. You could tie up like a bale of hay with them. They just made getting a really good lockdown with the shoe even more difficult than it should be really. With the more built-up materials on the Gyakosou Next, it was just a recipe for disaster. Heel slip, something you don't want in this shoe if you want to get the best out of it to get the propulsive qualities. So what is a runner to do? As you can see, a pair of lock laces later and we're getting some good mileage out of the shoe now. I guess classic triathlon style. Added these in the green apple flavour and they've absolutely worked a treat. They're helping to distribute the tension a bit more evenly perhaps over the top of the foot, and it's made them useful for some higher pace training. Sessions around about my 10k or half marathon pace. Absolutely fantastic. The other great thing about this colourway I suppose is the fact that you can't really see all the muck and grime on it. It's certainly a forest colourway, isn't it? You can imagine the Ewoks rocking this one on Endor, no problem. So is this a race option shoe for me now? Well, no, I think the extra bulk's probably going to put it into a training category. And I've got to be honest, I'm not really the biggest fan of the upper design. It really is quite a departure actually from the VaporFly Next upper on the original. Got this strange sort of midfoot strap area here. The materials are just quite bulky and it does add on quite a bit of weight to the shoe. But at least with some lovely elastic lock laces, it's made a reasonable training shoe now. $7.99, well spent. Next up, the Alphafly Next 2. Now, this was a superb shoe for me up to about 60 miles or so, then I got really bad arch pain in the right shoe. I documented that in my 100-mile review. I'll stick a link in the description. I found on occasion that flimsy insole that Nike have provided stock in the Alphafly 2 didn't really do the job of covering that arch area, and when the foam starts to compress, the very edge of the midsole and the arch just starts to dig into your foot. Now, this was when I'm running right up on the forefoot, top pace, steady pace, sometimes on some recoveries, it would just start happening. It wasn't all the time, but it did mean that this shoe was one that wasn't really calling out for me to use anymore, so I kind of retired it at 100 miles. I think my right foot's the slightly longer of the two, so whether it's some sort of fit type issue, I don't know, but it felt great for a long time, and then suddenly this problem started happening. I never got that issue on the original Alphafly, but on the V2 it made it a bit of a roulette wheel of despair as to whether it was going to happen or not. So what could be done? What could I do? That's not a shoe that I would perhaps considered in 2023 for a marathon, but it is now. I ripped out the insoles, people. Those flimsy things are long gone, and they've been replaced with the insoles from my Endorphin Speed 3. These are a little bit thicker, not by a huge amount, but they're far more sort of rigid really, not quite so flexible. The ones that come stock in these were just worthless really. They didn't really provide any sort of additional protection, I suppose, from that arch area. Rather than insole, kind of just like a sock liner, I suppose. Now, they were glued down really hard. I don't know what Nike used in there, but it certainly works. It's had a massive effect on the fit of the shoe as well, certainly in the toe box. Feels a bit more like a race fit to me now. Not quite so overly generous in terms of toe box height. I wouldn't say they're snug, but a bit more of a tailored fit for my foot. Certainly at pace, the shoe's more comfortable now. I've got about 12 miles of additional testing in, and that arch issue has completely disappeared now. It's quite a different ride, I suppose. Amazing what you can do just by replacing an insole as well. Just a little bit more compression, I suppose. There's a wider section on the arch there that just sort of splays over, and it's made the Alphafly Next Percent 2 a usable shoe once again, which is good when you've spent 269 quid on it. Ow. It may have added a few extra grams of weight, but the Alphafly 2 is one of those slightly heavier shoes anyway, but at least I can get a whole lot of extra miles now out of this one, use it for my marathon training in 2023. I've certainly got some extra training in this week with it. Look at the state of that. So, simple insole change. Well, I say simple, it took a lot of effort to remove those insoles. I think I used like a metal ruler, knife, all sorts of stuff to try and get the insole away from the actual top of the midsole material. So there we go, managed to save the sole of the Alphafly Next Percent 2. Last shoe up today, the Saucony Endorphin Speed 3. Now, as you well know, I've removed the insoles from this shoe to place into the Alphafly Next Percent 2. I really didn't feel that the insoles in that one were doing the shoe any justice whatsoever. They felt quite slippery, in fact, on top. No matter what type of sock I used, I could feel my foot kind of moving forwards and backwards inside the shoe. After I A/B'd this shoe against the Endorphin Pro 3, it almost felt like Saucony had like nerfed the Speed 3 a little bit by putting that insole in there. It's just like a sort of foam type insole, whereas on the Endorphin Pro 3 you've got a P-Bax like crushed up midsole, similar to I guess what you see in the Tempo Next Percent. Just felt a little bit lifeless, I suppose, with a current stock insole. So I replaced these with the crushed up Zoom X insoles from my Tempo Next Percent. I think that shoe I bought back in 2021, so I've had them quite a while. Hadn't been using them really in the Tempo Next Percent for ages, so they work a treat here. You've suddenly got a more Endorphin Pro-like feel, but obviously without the cost. It's made it a little bit closer to its more expensive brother. A little bit more cushion there, and it kind of reminded me, I suppose, of the Pro 3, but also of the original Speed as well. Really did make a big difference to this shoe. More compressive, more cushioned now. Now, another major issue I had with this Speed 3 was lockdown. The laces that Saucony supplied stock were just too elastic. They just stretch a huge amount, and I found it really hard to get a good lockdown with these. Just like really inconsistent, I suppose. I think they have a bit more stretch than even Stretch Armstrong himself. I've replaced those with some from the Pegasus 37. They're not the exact colour, but there's far less flex here in these laces. They're a little bit shorter as well. The ones that come stock, at least for my size of the Speed 3, were really long. This has made it much easier to get a more consistent lockdown over the top of the foot. There's less give and less sort of stretch in these laces when compared to the stock ones. It's absolutely revolutionised the shoe, if you ask me. Amazing again what an insole and a pair of laces can do. It's just completely changed the ride. This makes it a longer run option for me now. I'm not sort of worried about whether the lace tension is going to change over time, and it's just making it a more versatile shoe as well. Certainly the cushion's there, but I feel like I've got a little bit more pop from it, I suppose. Maybe because the lockdown's better on top of the midsole unit itself. Perhaps a nylon plate in here is actually doing its job a bit better now, who knows. It's made it a shoe that I wouldn't hesitate to grab for sort of any session now really. Easy miles, long run, speed, anything like that. Again, I've managed to save the sole of the Speed 3 just with a new insole and a new set of laces. 3 shoes saved there that I can put into use for my marathon training ready for Brighton in April 2023. Have you saved some of your running shoes from the bin just with some simple DIY methods? Let the runners and I know down in the comments. Musical interlude time. Whenever New Year's Eve rolls around, there's always one song that really strikes a chord with me, and it's not Auld Lang Syne. It's Hi Ho Silver Lining by Jeff Beck. I love everything about this track. It feels like it could have been made yesterday, I suppose. It's got this really interesting, weird vibe about it. Right from the intro, which has got that reversed sort of piano strike. I love the strange guitar playing as well, quite staccato. Doesn't really feel like a party tune, I suppose, during the verses, but it does a wonderful job of building up ready sort of into a crescendo when you get to the chorus, and everybody knows that track. Heaven knows what the lyrics are about. I've never really stopped to think about it, but they're completely insane. Some really odd guitar playing as well in the solo. It sounds like Jeff Beck's kind of played it twice, but quite differently, so it sounds all over the place. It's just like this sort of energetic mess, I suppose, but I really like it. It's really great strings as well, where the chorus comes in for the final time. It just is my New Year's Eve track, I suppose. Hope you have a fantastic New Year, people, and I'll see you in 2023. Remember to hit that subscribe button and click the bell below for notifications. Also, help the channel out by giving this video a thumbs up, like, and dropping us a super thanks down below. My name's EDDBUD, and I'll be seeing you in 2023.